we'll get some more commentary and some more reports coming out of the second joint practice today with the Raiders and what it means for not only this weekend, but for the long-term health, I guess, of the Niners quarterback situation. How concerned are you about Brock Purdy and his 3 picks today?
Right, and it's the way the picks happen. That's what I'm more concerned about. It's joint practice. We're in August. You can say it's not that big of a deal if you didn't have context. The context is Brock Purdy got UCL surgery. So, and also, he was always ahead of schedule. He was ahead of schedule. There was conversations. Was he rushed back? Was he not? I'm not saying he was. He got cleared to play by doctors that everybody trusts. We get all that. But you also have to get what you're seeing and what people are reporting. And I said earlier in the crossover that I felt like Brock Purdy's been a bit coddled. Every time he throws a pick, there is a 200-word essay after the pick, MLA format, about why the pick happened. When anybody else throws a pick, whether it's Sam Darnold or Trey Lance, there's nothing. It's just they threw a pick. It is what it is. So Brock Purdy to go from that, hey, he's our guy, and I get it. It's not necessarily about Brock Purdy and literally his performance. It's about the background of that performance and the fact that he did get major surgery. We were all a bit surprised. What was he about? A month and a half ahead of schedule, something like that, 6 weeks around there. So maybe he's still trying to get back to fighting shape, but nobody told us that. You told us he was ready to go. So are we supposed to just assume, okay, well, they're not going to say that he's not 100%, but we all know, again, that's grace that Brock Purdy has been given that I haven't seen other quarterbacks being given.
Yeah, and I guess the grace comes from 2 different places. On the one hand, Brock Purdy gets a certain amount of grace because of what he did last year in real games. Mm-hmm. And, he won every game he started and finished, and he took you to the NFC Championship game. And also the fact that he is coming back off of injury, and it's only August 11th. And I'm looking at all the reports right now, and words like bumpy and uneasy and even bad are being used in terms of Brock Purdy today. Wow. So there is a little bit of criticism about Brock Purdy, but also you do have to realize it's August 11th, and it's not necessarily, in my opinion, something that you have to worry about too much. You look at the schedule, and the season opens on September 10th. So you've got basically 30. You got 4 weeks from Sunday when the opener will take place. So you have 30 days between now and then. So if he's bumpy and bad today, that means a lot less to me than if he's bumpy and bad in 2.5 weeks or 2 weeks from today, the final preseason game against the Chargers.
Do you think this could affect how much we see Purdy in the preseason in a couple different ways? Because we know he's not playing in the first game. We think he might play in the second game. I have no clue how long. We've talked about, okay, well, if he gets 1 drive, is that enough? Would you have seen enough? If he gets 2 drive, I have no clue what he's going to get. We know Kyle Shanahan likes joint practices more, so maybe he'll continue to he got the majority of the reps today during practice. Maybe that'll be the situation going forward because Kyle Shanahan likes those better than preseason games. But I am curious to see, because now it turns into, you say 30 days. Do we think that he'll be not rusty or whatever word you want to use in 30 days? I don't know. And I'll tell you what, Dibs, talk about the franchise guy. Did you see those hits that C.J. Stroud was taking? It's a preseason game, but they're real hits.
Yeah.
They are real hits. So I don't know what they're going to do. We can continue to go back to last season and the magic that Brock Purdy was able to cook up. But as in terms of seeing it against a team with a different jersey, we haven't seen it yet, and we get it. It's early, but all we can do is report on what we're seeing right now. He might be the Brock Purdy of old in 30 days, but I don't know. He was cleared about a month and a half ahead of schedule.
Right, but he was cleared early because he was ready. He wasn't cleared early because they felt like there was pressure from Trey Lance,
right,
or that Sam Darnold was knocking on his door, or, boy, Brandon Allen looked good in OTAs. He got cleared because he was ready. So I wouldn't look at the fact that he got cleared early as anything other than, good on you, medical staff, and good on you, Brock Purdy, for rehabbing and getting to a point where you were ready to go. I don't think that he'd be out there playing at all, rust or no rust, if his arm was not ready to go.
No, yeah. I'm just saying, I hear you. I don't think that anybody cleared him prematurely. I'm just saying I wouldn't think about that if I wasn't seeing reports that these picks seem to be due to a lack of arm strength. And there are reports that when he tries to go down the field, he is not as accurate as he has been. That's the only reason I bring it up. Right. If he was dead red, then I wouldn't be talking about it.
Well, I would expect him to still be coming back from an arm strength standpoint because these are practices. We're talking about practice, Allen Iverson.
All right, AI.
We're not even talking about a preseason game or a real game. We're talking about joint practice. So, and I said this during the crossover, and I do believe that this is the way they approach it. Go ahead and make your mistakes now. If you feel like your arm isn't all the way back, the way you get your arm all the way back is by testing it. You're not going to be able to baby him and have him on the side for 4 weeks and 2 days, and then all of a sudden, okay, now you're ready to go September 10th in the opener at Pittsburgh. Now we want you to cut it loose. Now's the time to cut it loose and see, is your arm at 82%? Is it 91%? Somewhere in between? Are you 95% all the way back in terms of arm strength, deep ball, velocity, all the rest of it? I don't know where he is in terms of how close he is to getting back to where he was. All I know is this: in 4 weeks and 2 days, when the real games begin, he'd better be close to being the quarterback that he was. And if he's not, then we've got ourselves a problem.
I would agree. We got ourselves a big problem. And the question is, we don't know where he is right now. All we can go off of is what we're seeing. And if you're in Vegas, what you're seeing with your eyes. If you're not in Vegas, what you're seeing from the reports. And now I am happy that we're at least getting to this stage and we're not at the regular season yet, but at least we're at a training camp, because training camp was ridiculous. And I don't know what to do with it when you are facing your own team and a team that is missing Nick Bosa. And again, at this point in the season, Dibs, who would you say is normally further ahead? Whether is it going to be the offense or the defense? Because you have the Niners quarterback struggling against a Raiders defense who is not supposed to be world beaters. And then you have the Raiders quarterbacks doing well against a Niners defense, even missing Nick Bosa.
Right.
With Nick Bosa, projected fourth best defense. Without Nick Bosa, projected 7th. Those are both astronomically higher than wherever the Raiders are supposed to be. And you got a guy who might be rusty. We don't know, because he was just cleared to play. We have to use our imagination, who is being outdueled by the guy that they ran out of town, young Jimmy G, out in the LV.
Yeah, and thank you for the rhyme there at the tail end. Alan Stiles in for Mark Willard. I'm not too concerned about any of it in terms of who is ahead. I would expect the Niners defense to be ahead of the Niners offense just based on the quarterback situation, with Brock Purdy coming back from injury, Trey Lance coming back from injury, Sam Darnold coming back from 2 failed stops, and Brandon Allen, who didn't even get a snap today, he's kind of out of the picture. It feels more and more like it's going to be Trey and Sam as quarterback 2 or quarterback 3, barring any last-minute trade that pops up where they deal Trey Lance and they keep Brandon Allen. But if they do that, it feels to me like the quarterback room will be weaker if it's Brock, Sam, and Brandon Allen. That's weaker than if it's Brock, Trey, and Sam, in my opinion.
The Niners have an opportunity, and they have a decision to make if Trey's stock continues to rise. And ultimately, it just becomes how much you believe in Brock long term. We know Brock is QB1 this year, at least to start the season. No clue what happens once you get going here. I think he's got a nice runway. You'd really have to muck it up to not no longer be the quarterback. And then after that, you get to Trey Lance, who, okay, is Trey starting to figure it out? So you can basically hold him just in case Brock gets injured. He is coming off a UCL. Or you decide, look, we cleared Brock. He looks good. We also like what Sam Darnold is doing. We just pray that you don't have to get to Brandon Allen, because, again, the fact that we have to also remember, Dibs, that last year was not the norm. Last year was not what typically happens for teams when your starting quarterback and your backup quarterback goes down. So this idea that you need 3, I mean, typically teams have 3, but if you get to number 3, normally you just mail it in. The Niners were able to not mail it in because of Brock and how he played. But this idea that you need these 3 extremely strong QBs, I get it, but also that's not normally how this works. If you get to the 3rd quarterback, it just wasn't your year, typically, but it was.
Right.
Last year, it could have been for the Niners, but their 3rd string quarterback got hurt.
Right, but if you're the 49ers and you're Kyle Shanahan and you look at your time here, you needed 3 the first year. Then the next year you needed 3. Then the 1 year Jimmy Garoppolo started all 16. The year after that, you needed 3.
Right.
Then you needed 2, and last year you needed 3, and you needed 4 if you count Josh Johnson in the playoffs. So in 5 of Kyle Shanahan's 6 years here in San Francisco, he's needed 2 or more. So I do think he looks at it like, we might need 3.
Yeah.
And, Brock's UCL, and he likes to hold the ball, and he will take a lot of hits. And you mentioned C.J. Stroud last night, and he took some early hits in his career. Cracked in August. It's not good.
No, at least it's warm, but it still hurts.
Right. And, last year you had Trey Lance, and he lasted 5 quarters, and then Jimmy G lasted almost 2 months, and then Brock Purdy lasted about 2 months, and then you needed Josh Johnson. So I do think that Kyle Shanahan is dealing with some PTSD with the QB.
But Dibs, remember? He was asked about it. It's just bad luck. It just happened. I don't know how it keeps happening. It's just bad luck.
It is bad luck, but if it happens in 5 of 6 years, you have to feel like you can expect the bad luck, and maybe you're going to protect yourself, and you're going to gird your roster accordingly by keeping as many good quarterbacks as you can.
Okay, so yesterday, bringing up the Bucks, right? That trade, it was a second round swap and a third. That's what the Niners would get. So the question becomes, getting a second round swap for a team that you don't think is going to be very good in the Bucks and a third round pick to lose Trey, move off of Trey to get those back. What's worth more? Keeping Trey in case you need 3 QBs again, or moving off of Trey and, hey, we really like that second and third round pick? That's the question that the Niners have to ask if Trey's stock continues to be where it's at or even rises. And now you're talking about an even better deal. Is it worth it to hold on to Trey in case Brock gets hurt for this specific season? Or do you trust Sam Darnold enough, and Brandon Allen for that matter, to move off of Trey and get a better deal than you probably could have imagined you were getting just a couple months ago?
It feels to me like a Brandon Allen question. If you think that Brandon Allen is good enough to be your quarterback at some point, if you need him, then it becomes easier to trade Trey Lance. If you don't think that Brandon Allen can be QB2 or QB3, well, now you have to keep Trey Lance because of what we talked about in terms of if you get into that emergency spot.
Right.
We know that Kyle Shanahan likes Sam Darnold, and they liked him coming out of college, and they like him now. So I don't think that they're going to do anything with Sam Darnold other than keep him as QB2 or QB3. The question is, do you like Brandon Allen enough to where you may have to play him and you like him more than Josh Johnson? Because last year Josh Johnson was straight emergency.
Yeah.
You picked him up and you kept him because you needed a backup. You didn't have Jimmy and you didn't have Trey. You were down to Brock and Josh. And, Brock played and Josh was just there on the sideline. Many of us didn't even think about it until he had to go in in the end of January. So to me, it becomes a question about how you feel about Brandon Allen.